what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to keep up to date with the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum to keep up to date with the community debate. And if you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Quantum Eraser, Zinda, The Plain Truth, The One, Slick James Johnson, Physics Warrior, Flattened Earth, Ellen, Eben, and Arwin. Good to have you one and all.
Hello, hello, hello. What ho?
What's up?
Shout out to the banana split experiment.
Yeah, housekeeping. Any evidence for a flat Earth?
Oh,
Yeah, you're looking at it.
No,
Yes.
Yes.
that's not
Yes.
evidence.
All you have to
Photographs
do
aren't
is go
evidence.
down.
It is evidence by your standard.
Photographs are not
Right.
evidence.
Yeah,
they
but
are.
I don't need a photograph.
Oh,
I can just
God.
look at it with my own eyes.
Yeah, just looking
No
at it,
man-made
that's-
device, just my
evidence.
eyes.
that's not evidence.
Yeah,
I
it
see,
is.
I see a lot of mountains doesn't look flat at all.
the biggest dielectric plane in existence.
Okie
Just
dokie then.
because the surface contours are not perfectly flat like a
What a
desert doesn't
show,
mean
brother.
that the whole thing is not flat.
So how do I know Zurich is flat?
So the
in
reason,
general?
the reason for the
Bumpy.
housekeeping questions is because the current assertion, most of the Western world believe they live on a sphere. That is the current rhetoric. Any signs of
a
that
fact.
Earth curvature that would be necessitated by the belief that most people hold that we live on a sphere? Any signs of that Earth curve?
No
Yes.
curve yet, Nathan.
Yes.
Excellent.
Lots of evidence.
What is it?
Just your eyes. You can just see it.
Just your eyes. Is it scientific evidence?
Well, that was what Arwin said. He says that he can just see
No,
the
no,
flat
no,
Earth.
not Arwin.
So-
Is
I
there
didn't say that.
scientific evidence
Yes, you
for
did.
a spinning
No, I
ball?
didn't. I said it's evidence.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
it's
listen,
evidence.
we're
The
getting off the beaten path
observation-
already.
You see
Nathan
it.
asked you a question. Nathan, ask her again.
Is there any evidence of Earth curvature?
Nope.
Yeah, from a sufficient height, you can see with your own eyes that the Earth is a ball.
No, because Neil deGrasse Tyson, your scientism preacher, says it's flat.
The only
No,
distance
that's-
you're going to require to be taking is distance from reality, retreating in your own imagination.
Bye bye, Brenda.
She left.
So we observe currently everything is flat.
Where did Brenda go?
We don't dictate it as a phenomena. Now, people who see or think they see that there's a curve, they observe the phenomena, and they need the scientific experiment that they can say, hey, what we observe isn't what we're actually observing. It's
Well,
pretty
that's
simple.
that. We're waiting for Brenda's explanation.
Yeah, what happened
She
to
was going to
Brenda?
provide scientific evidence.
She just
Some-
left.
Did
She
somebody
left.
Oh.
Yes?
Sorry about
Paul
that,
joined.
Nathan. You're talking. It's
No,
delayed.
no, it's okay. I just wanted to check that she actually left of her own volition and no one kicked her out. I'll take it from the silence that she
No one
just-
kicked her. Nobody kicked her.
Oh, she's still in the back chat.
She's still in the back, yeah.
All right.
Oh,
I
well,
don't
she's
even know how to
If
kick
she
her.
wants to come in, Nathan, I'll drop out.
Just let us know if you want to rejoin, Brenda. You're welcome to, but we've got a full panel in any event. So, yeah, I was hoping to see any actual evidence of Earth curvature. She said from a sufficient altitude you can see Earth curvature. well, I've done plenty of international travel and I've never seen Earth curvature, but I was hoping maybe she could take that further and show us this visible Earth curve that I've never ever been presented with. I don't know about you. Has anybody actually been presented with Earth curvature?
Just go up, 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 up in your imagination, and eventually you'll look at the Earth in your imagination and see a ball. That's
No, I mean
Brenda's explanation.
real evidence, actual evidence of Earth
What?
curve.
Real? No. Why would we need that?
Well, we need
Sweet.
scientific evidence because that's what we've been preached at for the past 3 years, correct? So let's get specific. If we are to believe in a flat Earth, then we have to deny all of science and physics. Now, I know I'm not the only one that's been told that, challenged that, screamed at with that for 3 years. I know that. This panel is probably full of people with that. So that's what we want. We want scientific evidence of a spinning ball. Thank you.
Any evidence of Earth rotation, axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No axis.
Nothing.
No spin.
Station. Harry.
Right, scientific evidence of gravity.
Nope.
Nothing.
Aberration.
Abomination.
No, aberration.
Odorless.
Abomination.
Only the acceptation as a physical, literal thing would be an abomination.
Somebody said it's odorless.
Odorless.
Yes, it's odorless.
Declaration.
That's kind of true.
What about evidence of a gas pressure being able to exist without a container?
Well, that's not odorless.
Definitely needs a container. Solid barrier.
Sure. I appreciate that the necessary antecedent is a container in order to have the gas pressure, but is there any evidence that we can have the same gas pressure without a container?
Nope.
Any evidence you can smell gas without a container?
That's lovely. This isn't an exploration of the senses. Just there's a general belief that the sky is a vacuum, Arwin, and I'd like to know if that fundamentalist belief is in any way valid.
You mean fundamentally flawed?
Yeah, it is definitely fundamentally flawed, but as I said at the start of the show, at the beginning of the housekeeping, the basic premise of this session of housekeeping is to establish a lot of the fundamentalist belief that the majority of the Western world hold. So most of the Western world tip their head towards the sky, and although they might not do it in this way, the way I'm boiling it down now, they ultimately, based on their belief, tip their head to the sky and say, that would be a vacuum then. Not appreciating that the gas they are enjoying, the life that they are experiencing, would not be there to enjoy if the sky was a vacuum, because the gas would fill that space, that infinitely expanding, never-ending space described in the heliocentric world. Now,
sometimes you have to go outside and smell the gas.
Indeed. So no evidence of a gas pressure being maintained without a container. Nothing to back up the vacuum of the sky. Anybody at all?
No.
Amazes me that so many people have this fundamentalist belief about a sky vacuum. But moving on, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Impossible. Even if you can simulate it and create it, it will stop spinning at some point, relevant to the crest. Cannot retain the differences in spin.
What's interesting is that the scientists are saying that the core is no longer molten.
Yeah, I saw that.
Whoa, are they scientists?
Yeah, they claim scientists.
Whoa, they claim
have
they're
done
scientists.
research.
I always
Are they
wonder who
these
these
scientists,
scientists always are when they claim scientists.
Well, that's what John was just about to get in, so I'll get it in for him. Thank you, John. I'll just steal your
See it
thunder.
a lot.
Okay,
A lot of
thank you.
articles. Always scientists this, scientists that. Never really see the name with those scientists. So it's interesting.
I'm itching to take your lead, Arwin. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. The problem, which has been highlighted by Bob Nodell, this is the crux of the problem. We are not at war with science. Science is on our side. The study of the physical and natural world is on flat Earth's side. Even though it's asserted by, and this is the main detail, the main point, the bit that everybody needs to get, it's pseudo-scientists say. Science doesn't say anything. Ever. It's not got lips. It's a method. So pseudo-scientists say... That's the problem. So when you next read an article that says, scientists have said we no longer have a molten iron core, it's actually a solid core. Well, science doesn't say anything. So just substitute the word scientists say for pseudo-scientists say, because you can be damn sure they're not adhering to a method when they're saying stuff.
Well, I'm always surprised that so rarely these days there's actual names of these supposed scientists mentioned every time. It's just scientists. You just take a big bag of scientists, you just grab one and say, yeah, scientists. You happen to be a scientist, like a ball in a ball bag. But you rarely actually even get to hear the name of the supposed scientist that figured it out.
Yeah,
You
it's
just
like
say
someone's
scientist.
opened a door. It's like someone's opened a door and they've got a big bucket of like little chicks, you know, and they're all like reaching out, opening their mouths to get food. But those little chickens have all got tags on that say scientist. And they just open the door and they go, what's that you say, scientists? That's a ball. Those lights, they're gases, they're gases. And they're all saying the same thing. They go, thank you, scientists, and close the door.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Any evidence of the presuppositional R value, Earth radius?
Nothing
Regarded
whatsoever.
as mopeds.
No.
Say
Does
again, Dion?
presuppositional evidence count?
No, not evidence that there is a presupposition at play, but evidence to back the presupposition as being actually real. So the assertion that we have a radius, spherical radius, any evidence of that?
But what about a presupposition of evidence?
Yeah, that's my irony in the question. When I say any evidence of the presuppositional R value, right, therein lies the answer.
Well, Eratosthenes. that's as
Sticks in the
close
ground.
as you can get.
Sticks in the ground.
No. Just to correct that, Eratosthenes only utilised the presupposition of the R value.
Yes, from Aristarchus.
Correct. So he was just affirming the consequent.
But who actually started up with the concept of a presupposition of R? Really?
Aristarchus.
How?
Jay.
How did he? PJ. How did he do that? How did he propose it?
Okay, well, he observed lights in the sky, and then he observed a shadow traversing that light in the sky, and said that shadow must be caused by a spherical Earth causing the shadow.
So he was the first to presuppose it, basically.
According to the bullshit narrative of history, yes.
Okay.
You
So
could
any
probably
evidence?
call that the beginning of the observe and declare age.
right.
Well, yeah. Look at that. Look at that shadow. Must mean I'm standing on a sphere.
But
right.
I also wonder who was basically the first to find out that it is actually a presuppositional system. Because there were some really freaking smart people during the Renaissance and the early 20th century. So I wonder, like, who figured out that that is a presupposition in the first place?
Half these people are probably just invented from scratch, Arwin.
Thanks.
I will support Nathan.
Anyway,
Still, somebody has to be the first one who figured out that it is a presupposition, though.
Oh, you're asking who figured out that the guy in the narrative known as Aristarchus made the presupposition. Who was it that figured out that he'd done that in the narrative? Is that the question?
Yes. Because there must have been flat Earth versus globe debates before. There's even books that we're finding back of pre-20th century flat Earth things, and so I wonder who was the first to actually figure out that
I
it
think
was presuppositional.
I've just Googled it, and according to Google, it was a guy called Nathan Oakley. So I trust Google.
But Arwen had in mind that during that time, everybody was, all the people were flat earthers because everybody knew the Earth is flat. So probably lots of people did this simultaneously. Though should be the answer.
You think they all figured it out that it was presuppositional?
I think the smarter people of the world know.
Smart people did.
I think intrinsically, the smarter people know, because it's just. I'm not going to attribute that everybody who's smart knows what a logical fallacy is, but the fact that it's described as a model, and all throughout your education, it's not hidden that you are being taught a model. So that being the case, as you go higher up in education, you're going to intrinsically understand that you're reifying that model if you are to suggest that you are actually standing on something you are describing with mathematics. So maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I've just got too much faith in humanity.
Well, I think that yeah, these days people are much easier in just falling into traps and believing things quite easily because there is so much material out there to fall into a trap of. But I think that like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, the mentality was very different. And even though people were not very used to elaborate amounts of information, they were probably raised a lot smarter, a lot sharper. So they may have all figured it out pretty quickly. I don't know.
I mean, this kind of ties into the main topic of the day, which is the hijacking of science, but it definitely dovetails into the last debate, which is to say that when Brenda was on the panel, she was explaining the practical application that comes from scientific discovery. So that, in my humble opinion, is where you get the confusion between technology and science. Because most of the time when there's a scientific discovery made, if it's publicised, most people won't see the benefit of it. It's only when something is actually put into practical use or application through things like technology, computing in the case of quantum mechanics, that people then see the benefits of it. And the point being that doesn't make the application based on scientific discovery scientific. You know, that's technological, as opposed to the discovery itself, which led to that technological device being invented in the first instance. In other words, one is the antecedent for the other. You couldn't have computing without quantum mechanics. That's the point. But those scientific discoveries, those things that have been validated through systematic experimentation, drive technology.
But there's one little issue, though, and that is that officially technology within the context of science is actually referred to as applied sciences.
Absolutely.
Which makes it even more confusing.
Great description until someone flips that on its head and you get computer science.
Yeah. So my background is in, I guess, a career in software engineering, software testing. Now, with software testing, you use a methodology. I'm sorry, as it's very similar to the scientific method. And what it is to find bugs, right? You've got a specification within the software application. Now it says, hey, when you do this, this is the outcome. So when you write a bug, what you do is you find something, what it's supposed to be doing, but it isn't. And you write up the steps to get to that, and it's repeatable. And basically, you're saying, hey, this is just like a hypothesis. This is what's supposed to happen, and this is the actual result. And then you can go on. You can add in more different steps to repeat the bug, that the bug exists. Now, what's interesting, the difference between finding bugs in the software application and the real world and using the scientific method is that we don't find bugs in the world that we live in, the reality that we're experiencing. Not like a software application. what we end up doing is we find, I mean, everything seems to work as it's supposed to work. Now, what we end up finding are certain aspects that just things are varied. So if you keep repeating an experiment, for example, say you've got an egg, just a fresh egg, and you drop it in a body of water. Now in fresh water, it will sink. Now in salt water, it will float. So when all of a sudden you drop an egg and you're explaining to people, look, see, I'm dropping this egg, it'll sink. And it sinks in fresh water. And you keep repeating it and showing to people, you know, and then you go over to the oceans like, hey, look at this. This egg will drop in the water because I guess you're going to say gravity. But the thing is, it floats on top of salt water because the salt water is denser than fresh water. And the egg is less dense than salt water, but denser than fresh water. So we see the variability. It's not a bug in the earth or in the world, the way the world works, but there is a bug within the hypothesis of gravity, because we see density as being the underlying factor why it floats or sinks, and not necessarily gravity with the mass of the object.
No, you're conflating terms. So you're giving a logical explanation for relative density and then inserting or shoehorning this word experiment into there.
Yes, and there's no hypothesis for gravity.
No. That's the supposition that everyone's saying, okay, it's like someone explaining, hey, the reason why when I drop this egg, it's because of gravity, and why it keeps falling through the fresh water is because of gravity. But then when they repeat the experiment, but it's on a saltwater medium and the egg floats, it's more of it's kind of like a bug within the model of gravity.
Not really. No. It's actually, look, I've been on that side.
How does gravity explain the difference?
It's very simple. The water with the salt in it is combined more susceptible to the gravity than the egg is. But it doesn't really matter.
No, it does.
It's a system. It's a mathematical system.
More dense.
Yeah, I know. I'm not trying to dispute that. I'm saying that the calculus system.
Yeah, you are. More susceptible to the gravity.
No, I'm not.
Oh, come on, Arwen. More susceptible. Let me just say it. Let me repeat what he said. Arwen, don't rumpus me. Come on. Arwen, you said more susceptible to the gravity.
Right.
No, not right at all.
No, I'm not saying it exists. I'm saying that according to the principle.
Someone get quotes around that. Get quotes around it.
That is how it is explained. That is.
Arwen, that's classic, man.
It's still an aberration.
It's been a slow release, right? Since Arwen had relinquished it about 6 months ago, right? Rather than bearing the ridicule, he's slowly relinquished it over time. So
that, you know what you know what that is.
Arwen, you're cheerleading for gravity. That's what it is. And for right now, we don't have to explain the gravity. Eben has to explain how gravity works with this thought experiment. I'm just listening.
I'm not saying gravity works. I'm saying if someone's trying to represent how gravity works, and they use the egg.
And this scientific approach, did you say this is Greco or Greek? Is it not that you mentioned before?
No, I did not mention anything about Greek.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You must be in another hangout.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought there was a whole other scientific method. But
all I'm saying is that according to the reasoning system as how gravity is supposed to function, basically mathematically deduced, there it definitely is an explanation. There's just no scientific proof, and that's what makes it an aberration.
Wait, is it an aberration or an apparition?
An aberration. An apparition is mostly visual. That's why the sun disk is an apparition.
Oh, okay.
Apparition is just widespread suggested through several elements, several observations that I have treated in my defense of gravity.
Yeah, but you said that their gravity was gotten or attained by reason. No, it's not mathematical reason.
A system.
No,
it's a system.
They just described it. All they're describing is an effect, right? We're looking for the cause.
Well, I'm not. I know it's not there.
Right.
But I get the system, though.
What is going on here is Nodell syndrome.
I don't know what that is.
Don't
Can you
do it,
explain that,
Slick.
James?
What Nodell syndrome is
Oh,
when
God.
you say something one way and then in the very next sentence say something different. So you're combining two things that have opposite meanings and combining them together to make it sound like they have one meaning.
The trouble is, Slick, that at the moment Bob has cognitive dissonance, and I'd be doing a disservice to John and his excellent speech, which is to say that at the point that somebody understands that they've made a mistake and, you know, and expresses that they understand that mistake to the level that they won't be making it again, at that point, all bets are off. We all forgive and forget. So I know it's in Bob's capability to do that. And he is an intrinsic part of the Flat Earth team. Hashtag same team, all that bollocks. But ultimately speaking, we're pushing for him to understand this, concede his mistake, and then we all move on happy. Nobody's going to be making memes on this side of the fence about Bob Nodell if he concedes and understands and therefore won't make the same mistake again. That's the end goal. So what I'm trying to check you on is sort of making up catchphrases and, you know, it's the Nodell syndrome of, well, no, this is the interim stage for Bob. And, you know, I still have a lot of empathy for him. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, no, yeah, no, I get it. It's just that I'm coming from somewhere else.
Where's that?
Well, what I'm just basically stating is that same syndrome is what all Globers have. And what happens is when you don't clear your head and try to think with an empty mind, you just end up doing that. You make a statement and then you follow that next statement with the exact opposite and combine them as one to make it sound like the same.
Slick, remind me never to piss you off. Did you see how I asked him to not attribute it to Bob? So what he did was link it to globe heads and their ill ways. Very clever, Slick. Definitely, I won't be pissing you off in a hurry.
No, I'm just saying but that's the mentality. That's what happens. That's what Arwen just did a second ago. He mentioned gravity in one statement, and then in the very next statement,
that was Eben.
Pardon me.
That was Eben that asserted the gravity.
No. I'm talking about when Arwen made his statement. Arwen was talking about when Eben was talking about the egg, and then Arwen was describing gravity. So you threw the word gravity in as if it was a thing, and then in the very next sentence you take it away. That's what I mean by that. It's all. I won't call it the Nodell syndrome. I'll call it the globe syndrome.
Excuse me, Slick James. Bullshit.
Yeah.
No, hold on. I responded in the way I can. John, can you let me freaking explain?
Hold on a second,
myself, please.
How'd you snovel,
Shut up. I'm talking here. He addressed me, and I'm going to respond.
This is the typical response of somebody who's in the wrong, John. So Arwen's now totally triggered, and he's going to talk over and rumpus the hangout. It's been a really telling week.
Well, hold on a second. Wait a second. Just establish what Arwen did, and then Arwen can explain. Arwen, what you did that Slick is talking about was you invoked gravity in one sentence, and in the very next sentence you said gravity doesn't exist. Go.
I didn't invoke anything. I responded to Eben declaring that gravity cannot explain this, and I said, yeah, it can. Doesn't mean that it's proof for it, though. It just say this system of reasoning that is the foundation of the belief in gravity can and does explain it. But it's not relevant because you can't prove it's actually there.
I wouldn't call it as an explanation. I would call it more of an exception. I like to think within the software world, because what's great about the software world is it's all based on algorithms. Now you have an algorithm. Say you use the gravitational an algorithm using gravitation, the gravitational formula. Now the thing is that there's going to be a lot of exceptions. Like the helium balloon, you're going to have an exception. You're going to have a balloon with heated air. That's going to have an exception. Now on a different, if you use a different algorithm saying, okay, density, right? Everything is in relation to the density of the object, and you have a database filled with objects and their relative density, and thus, if one object is within I guess a space that's filled with another object, it's going to either float or it's going to sink, I guess, rise or sink. And that's an easier model, easier algorithm to program than the gravitational model, where you're just writing a bunch of exceptions based on an object that appears. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. It's basically saying, hey, if we were the programmers of this world that we live in, how would we program it? And if it's based on the algorithms and the math that's been created for us, we're going to find problems with it.
Well said. I like it.
Does that make sense, though? Do you understand what I mean when I say global thinking? Because that's what globers do. They make a statement and then turn around and say the exact same opposite, and then combine them into one statement. And it's clear. Just listen to them closely.
That's not what I did.
It's Orwellian. It's doublespeak.
No, it's not.
It's double, right.
Very specifically defined, as in gravity, the concept, the mathematical foundation of how that reasoning works. Not that it's real, just the structure of it. That's all.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Is there any such thing as gravity?
There's the aberration.
Okay.
The misconception of it, yeah.
So, right, but yes or no, does gravity exist or doesn't it?
I don't know. I can't prove it.
Right. So it could. In other words, it may exist, it may not.
In some form or another, but it's futile to, at this point, to do anything with it other than understand how it works, the reasoning behind it.
But when you say that, but gravity has never been proven, so when you say you don't know, how can you not know something that has never been proven? In other words, you're saying
that it's never been proven.
Right, but you said it could exist.
There's a lot of things that can exist that have never been proven.
Argument from ignorance.
Still a possibility, though. Doesn't make those things real just because they could be.
But in the case of gravity, you've got hijacking, right? You've got relative density that explains this. And there's no necessity to add this extra thing in other than to give a verbal explanation to certain problems that occur in the heliocentric model. That's all it's used for. It's akin to the Earth curve. In other words, they've taken an aspect of reality, perspective, removed that very aspect and replaced it with something else, given it a name, and then attributed all aspects mathematically to the thing they've named, in this case Earth curve. So you're just taking one thing that principally exists and then reifying your definition of a new thing you need into that definition. And it's the same with gravity.
No, it's not. It's a whole nother level with gravity, because there's so many more observations, elements that contribute to the suggestion, the aberration of gravity. And with curvature, not so much. It's just a blatantly left out piece of optics to suggest it.
Yeah, but when you invoke
that's pretty
gravity,
much all of it. With gravity, it's much more. That's why I went onto the gravity bandwagon like a year ago or more, and eventually figured out, wait, no matter what I do, I can't prove it scientifically anyway. So
yeah, but when you say
more
gravity,
suggestions that there is.
Okay, but when you say gravity, it has a meaning, right? It can be one of two gravities. You got Newtonian or Einsteinian. So you can't invoke a term. I can't make up a term without defining it, right?
Well, when I say gravity, I mean force disequilibrium.
See, that's the problem, because everyone has different definitions. That's why we can't communicate. I'm not saying we as in me and you. I'm saying the royal we, because you have to be able to define things. Like if I'm talking about an apple and you're thinking about strawberries, then we're going to miscommunicate all the time, right? So when you invoke gravity, when you say a term, words have meanings. So in this particular case, gravity has a meaning. Number one, it can either be Einsteinian gravity or Newtonian gravity or Cavendish. I'd rather say Cavendish, but look, it's Newtonian Cavendish, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got two different types of gravity, and the point you're trying to get across is that, like always, words have meanings. This is semantics. And ultimately speaking, if you invoke that term, gravity, Arwin, I'm talking to, then you mean one of those two things, because that's how it's defined.
Right.
Fair enough. I'll take that very subdued concession.
And the thing is, it's one of those things that just people are not aware of because, like I said the other day, you get taught into this. You spend your whole life being brought up to think this way. So it's really not anybody's fault. It's just that once if you never shake that way of thinking,
I can hear you, Slick.
Okay,
That's exactly what I did.
If you never shake that way of thinking, you just end up doing it unwittingly. You don't mean to do it, but you just do it out of habit. See, when you say the word gravity, you are saying that it exists. So you can't turn around in the very next instance and say, well, but it doesn't exist. But if it did.
Straw man.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just putting it, it's like saying gravity doesn't exist, but if it did, this is what it would do.
Oh, that's a presuppositional argument. Saying gravity is not automatically assuming it exists. That's a false assumption.
No, but I'm just saying, in your statement, the way it sounded like you said, gravity doesn't exist, but if it did, this is how it would act. This is what it would do.
No,
Guys, sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask Quantum Eraser if I can get in contact with him?
Up to Quantum.
How much money you got?
Are you not both in Master B? Are you both in Master B chat on Skype?
I don't have his Skype.
No, I'm not in Master B.
I'll put you both in touch with each other if you're both happy.
Yeah, sure. I am with his Skype.
I don't know if I'll be happy about that.
Okay, we'll talk about it after.
All right.
Nothing to fear.
I'll tell you what. Hold on a second. He could also go into Discord, into science versus pseudoscience. How about that?
You on Discord, Dion?
I didn't got that.
You didn't get that?
Do you have Discord?
Would define the word, sorry.
Discord is a server, like a chat room server. So I'll plug Betty's Discord. It's called Science versus Pseudoscience. It's her Discord server. Flat Earther run server. So check it out.
Well, so if you is it like a link that I can connect to it, or?
Yeah, I'm sure John can dig that out.
Yeah, I could give you a link. I'll put it in the chat here. Give me a couple minutes.
There you go. Just in case you're KGB or something. To vet you first in Discord.
Sorry for my ignorance in those.
Not at all. I'm very fussy with Skype. I did add you, Dion, because I knew who you were, but typically I'm quite fussy about who I do and don't add on Skype also. Because you just end up getting people phone you at crazy hours.
I think Army needs a girl.
Armin does alright with the women.
Need it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think to expand, I mean, as far as maybe creativity and everything, that girl, so
no, you're being quite assumptive there.
It's actually quite the opposite, really.
Arwin does alright, he just doesn't talk about this. I'm not going to lead him in so he has to now, but Arwin does alright with the ladies, he just doesn't tend to talk about it, so just that's not an issue.
Well, shout out to Witch Bella, so she's perfect out there, so.
It's very simple. I mastered gravity. I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what it isn't. And you guys still have some catching up to do. So maybe I just have to explain it another year before you finally get it without ridicule.
That's brilliant.
That's classic.
That is ace. I've got to hand it to you. Round it out like a baller.
Hey, Nathan, before you round it out, tell Oscar that the Discord link, I sent it to you. So can you send that to him?
Yeah, I'll make sure he gets it. We've got another 20 minutes, so this live show's only been up for 20 minutes?
I can put it in the Google Hangout, Quantum.
20 minutes.
In the back. We'll be able to see it.
But Arwen, just out of curiosity, do you understand what you just said?
Yes, I do. In absolute detail, probably beyond what you understand about it.
No, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just having a conversation.
You're being kind of manipulative in a very subtle way.
No way, I'm not having you charge slick with that when you've just literally gone in the face of everything you've just conceded, even though it was very quiet and like a little mouse when you conceded it, and then you've just told the audience that you know everything and you are basically the He-Man of gravity.
That's right. I get gravity. Absolutely, I do. I know what it is and what it is not.
Fine. Right. Just for the sake of moving on, because there is a housekeeping question I missed. Right. We'll just let you have it, Arwen. Just so that you don't have to defend this vehemently with a crap argument for the next 10 minutes.
I don't need to let you have it. I have it, whether you like it or not.
Man, you just want a mile. I'm giving you an inch. Come on now.
No, I'm gonna take the full radius, baby.
No,
that's a joke.
Radius. That's priceless. I was gonna say we've missed a housekeeping question. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
Well, they use a specialized instrument that we have no knowledge about.
My claim is that the sun is right where it needs to be for our experience.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is.
I like that claim, Slick.
Bloody hippie answer.
Thank you.
You're a hippie.
That was a hippie answer. Yeah.
Can I ask again, Quantum, about the...
You broke off there. All I heard was Quantum.
Breaking up, Dejan. Say again.
He drops. This is going to be someone's opportunity to join.
Oh.
Yeah. So is his name Dejan?
Dejan.
Spell it.
Well, it's not exactly pronounced as it is spelled, but it is
Deyan.
Y-A-N. And just
Dejan.
Dejan.
Okay, thank you. So I can stop calling him Oscar. Dejan. So I can stop calling him Oscar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That's fine, no problem with Oscar as well.
Was that understood when I said that, though? When I made that statement about the sun is right where it needs to be for our experience? Did that sound weird?
Yeah,
no, it's actually perfectly fine.
I said I accused you of being a hippie.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to disagree with James just a little bit. Maybe it'll create some more discussion.
Sure.
You said you've been saying a lot since you've been on here about emptying your mind, emptying it out. I disagree with that to a point. I understand your point by saying that. I think you should test what you think and believe if it's valid. That's different than emptying your mind out completely. So if I empty my mind out incompletely, then I have no basis to judge anything.
Gotcha.
So I think
let me declare what I mean by that. Let me explain. What I'm saying is that when I say empty your mind, I'm saying empty your mind of that observe and declare reality that you've been indoctrinated into, so that you can go into the more of an experience reality. So I don't mean like dump that you learn 2 + 2 = 4. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that observe and declare. I see it, therefore it's this. I'm saying that's what you have to dump.
James, can you see electricity?
Can I see electricity?
Yeah. Sometimes you can, lightnings, but in the plug in the wall, you can't see it. So
nope.
Testing it with your fingers will be bad.
But is that the electricity or the material being lit up by the conduct of electricity?
The only thing you see is light. So
a better question is, what is the point of the question?
Yeah. What about a lightning bolt?
The point of the question is that you cannot observe it.
What about a
Some
lightning
things
bolt?
are not perceivable with our eyes, but if you touch it, you feel it.
But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is one specific thing: observe and declare. What I'm saying is you don't observe something and then declare what it is. That's all I'm saying. That's what you have to get out of the mentality of.
Slick, can I just make a slight correction for what you're saying? Because
Sure.
it is perfectly reasonable for me to look at my sofa and say sofa. So observe and declare is acceptable. It's when it comes to either an actual phenomenon, or a claimed phenomena. So when you have observe and declare in the debate that we currently find ourselves in, it's either something that is actually acceptable to observe and declare because it's actually really there, but in those instances it's observe and declare that it's a mirage.
Okay. See, now, and I explained it. What I said was, in the old system, we observed and declared, right? What I said was, once you remove that, now you move into the experience realm. See, so that's what you just described, the experience. You experience, like I'm sitting in a chair. I experience the chair. I don't have to declare it. I experience it. So that's what I mean. You know, you just get rid of the, you know, well, I observe this, therefore it's that. That's the point that I'm making.
So I look through my telescope and I declare that's actually a gas in a vacuum. So that would be what you mean. I'm not experiencing the gas in a vacuum. I'm just observing something and declaring it.
Right.
Well, I do declare.
And there's another important point here that we're missing. They're declaring the how and the whys, not the what's and the is's, right?
It's all any kind of declaration. Anytime you just look at something and say this is what's happening, that's observe and declare.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's the hows and the whys.
That's what I was trying to get to. So it's what's happening means what is the explanation for this phenomena, this occurrence. So
yes,
it's sometimes perfectly acceptable to look at something and declare, but those aren't the hows and the whys.
Precisely.
Right. It's like I said. What happens is when you stop just doing what we were brought up to do, then we experience and we see more clearly. Just like the example of the sun, we were brought up with this distance of the sun. But see, if we remove that observe and declare reality, now we just experience the sun for what it is, and we don't try to put any type of labels on it.
Hey, James, let me ask you another question, and this might create more discussion. Is experience subjective or objective?
Well, it's experience.
Subjective.
It's just experience. It's like if I got a glass of water and I'm drinking it, I'm experiencing drinking a glass of water.
Okay, a colorblind person experiences color in a very different way than a person that can see color can experience it. So, you know, that their experience is experience. You're right. That doesn't necessarily mean what they're experiencing is true reality.
Yes,
right?
It is. Yes, it is reality because that's what they're experiencing. If in other words, how could they experience it if it wasn't real?
I'm not saying that what they're experiencing is not something that they're aware of, you know, or real to them. But I'm looking at red, but they may say gray.
Okay.
So their experience is subjective in that sense of the word. Now, you know, but does that mean that they're experiencing as gray and not red? Do you understand what I'm driving at?
Exactly. That's two different experiences. You're experiencing red, and they're experiencing gray. They're two different experiences. But okay, so in other words, can we just assume that the person that's seeing gray is seeing the wrong one and you're seeing the right one? Maybe you're seeing the wrong one and he's seeing the right one. How can you tell? You can't just it's right. You can't just declare that because you're seeing red, you're correct and he's wrong. That's a declaration.
It's down to experience. So I've had this. I only understand this at a great level because I am colorblind. So you cannot experience someone else's subjective or objective reality. You can't go into their head. So what I describe as grey grass is just my experience of that grass.
So can I go back to quantum and the question about the apple that's fallen from the tree?
That was a long time ago, man. I thought that this was really good. But we'll get back to that. This subjective experience, right? Whether experience is subjective or objective. That's a really good discussion because we all know that that experiences are subjective, correct? They are subjective to that person that it's experiencing it. Now, how can we make that objective? That's for the collective, that we can agree and communicate. How can we do that?
Well, you have to agree on terms.
So one, you have to agree on terms. Good. And how else?
So to me, what I think of is that you have collective experience versus individual experience. So it's just a matter of which one are you speaking of? Because collectively, we all experience. So when you talk about it in those terms, now you have a different type of experience. But then there's the individual experience that is like no other.
Well, I suppose
right.
I was going to say the next step would be you could only agree upon things that were actual, i.e. things that you could physically experience to agree upon in the first instance.
Right, I was getting towards experiment, right? But let's go back to Slick's point. This is really good discussion on the subjective part, right? Slick,
Can we subjectively
so facts? Hold on a second. So facts are defined as true shared reality, right? Would that be a good definition?
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's what facts are defined as.
It is just a consensus.
Yeah. I was driving at that. So stuff that we can all physically experience and agree upon that it is experienceable. So not the ethereal, not the supernatural. Hey, we're describing science, aren't we? You're right, John.
Yeah. That's really good discussion, man. That's what we needed on here. We needed a hippie on the panel.
Yay, Slick.
What's your full name? What's your full name? Because I'm going to put you in for a Nobel Peace Prize.
No, hold on. Before we move on to this side note, hold on. Sorry. So Dion's been itching to get a question in, and we've got about 5 minutes left on the live show. So I do want him to get it in and hopefully get an answer before we round out the live show. If you're watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980, stay tuned. There'll be an after show. Go ahead, Dion.
So the apple falling from the tree and starting to rot. I want quantum to tell me what's happening when it falls from the tree and what it ends up to becoming.
You want me to explain how and why the apple falls from the tree and why does it rot?
No, what's happening in the rotting process.
The decay?
Yeah.
It's increasing entropy.
Entropy started when the apple broke from the tree. But then as entropy is increasing, what else is occurring?
With the apple, what else is occurring besides entropy?
Yep.
I don't know. Is this multiple choice, open-ended? What's up? Singers are singing. People are dancing.
Okay, I said that the second part of the second law of thermodynamics is missing. And this is when entropy starts to take effect, when the law starts when the apple breaks off the tree. The start of the increase of entropy starts a new cycle or a new production. So it's going back. So can you...
What? You're going to have to say that again. What's the missing part of the second law of thermodynamics?
Well, wait, let me just try and summarize for you, Dion, if I'm correct in my understanding. What you're saying is, at the point of the energy dissipation to nothing, there is also new life being created. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yep. Or if you want to understand that, take in consideration what the tree used to create the apple in the first place. It used atmospheric gases and then liquids and solids from the soil, right? So it created the apple.
Right.
And then the apple went on growing and displaced a volume of air while it started to get bigger. Then when it breaks off the tree and it falls, this pressure of the air that it displaced, it starts the opposite process. So it starts pushing back on the apple. The apple is not connected to the tree, so it doesn't have the life source that was supporting it. So then the pressure is taking the back toll on the apple. So when the apple disintegrates, it forms gases and solids. So they go back to their respective places, which is enriching the environment. This is the second part, or the looping of the second law of thermodynamics.
Yeah, that's not that. There's no violation of the second law, and it's not a missing part of it. What's the missing part?
So, that it's a loop. The start of the law means that it will create something new gases from the rotting of the apple. New soil.
That's not a missing part.
That part of the life cycle, rather.
Yeah, that's not a missing part. I don't know what you're getting
lifeless
to.
matter conforms to that concept perfectly. Yeah, some of it may, though, but...
Hold on, Owen. Can you just clarify how that's missing a part of the second law? I don't follow.
Because in the moment when the apple is detached from the tree, entropy starts to increase, right? But then as entropy increases, it produces new gases and new solids for the soil and the atmosphere. So it gives it back.
But that's still increasing entropy.
I was going to say that's part of entropy. That's part of that process. It's not creating something new. That's part of the decay.
Yeah, but that's it was condensed in the juice and cells in the apple, and then when they fall apart, it expels the gases, so they can be used again.
Yeah, but you're describing entropy.
Yep.
Yeah. So. Yep.
Maybe Dejan is trying to point at a overarching cyclical nature, of which entropy is basically the structural foundation.
Yeah, but when you're talking about it with life, there's a lot of nuances there, because the only way that you can overcome entropy temporarily is you need two things. You need energy, and not just any old energy. You need the specific type and the amount. And number two, you need some type of intelligent guiding. That means a program, some type of intelligence. And like I said, this goes back to Maxwell's demon. We ain't going to get into that. But that's what you need. I don't see where I don't see where the missing part is what I'm saying.
Well, can you give one last plug for your, maybe this would be more applicable to the quantum mechanics experiment video. You want to give that one more plug for the live audience, and then I'll round out this part of the live show?
Which one are you talking about, Nathan? The one I provided you, or the one that I went over?
The one that you provided, the one that's in the info box below this video.
So, the one I did. Yeah, so all you have to do, and it's just not the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. I go from the beginning discussing quantum mechanics, talking about wave-particle duality, which is nonsense, and why it is nonsense, step by step. We talk about diffraction grading, why or how wavelength for particles is magically endowed, because particles can't have wavelengths. We go over the double slit experiment and its ramifications, and a detailed look at the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment, step by step, within the scientific method. So I think that covered it.
So that's in the info box below this video. So if you're watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, for those of you in the Nathan Oakley live audience, this is where we bid for you farewell, but I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you joining us in the live audience. Also a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!